Continuing from the previous chapter, Lin Dong successfully advanced to the Nirvana stage. The amount of Nirvana chi he absorbed far exceeded that of an average person, reaching the equivalent of millions of Nirvana pills. Lin Dong faced the dual trials of the Nirvana tribulation and the wind and thunder tribulation, but with the aid of the mysterious stone talisman and the devouring ancestral talisman, he effortlessly withstood the challenges and strengthened himself further. The Nirvana tribulation and the wind and thunder tribulation lasted nearly half a day. The thunderous roars from above and the intense waves emanating from Lin Dong's body made the entire cultivation platform unbearably hot, even causing the surrounding Nirvana chi to become increasingly violent. For most cultivators, facing two major tribulations simultaneously would be a near-catastrophic event. However, for Lin Dong, who possessed both the mysterious stone talisman and the devouring ancestral talisman, this was merely an opportunity to further refine and enhance his strength. Despite enduring some hardship during these dual tribulations, the resulting surge in his power was so immense that the suffering seemed trivial by comparison. As dusk approached, the violent fluctuations surrounding the cultivation platform, enveloped in a crimson barrier, gradually subsided until they vanished entirely. At the center of the platform, Lin Dong sat quietly, cross-legged. The golden light that once shrouded his body had completely receded, and the previously wild and formidable aura had also withdrawn deep within his body. From the calming color of Lin Dong's skin and the return to tranquility in the air, it was evident that he had successfully navigated through both the Nirvana tribulation and the wind and thunder tribulation. Suddenly, his tightly shut eyes opened. A faint flicker of wind and thunder flashed within them, and the air before him trembled violently, emitting a sharp, low humming sound. Crack! Lin Dong slowly clenched his fists. As his muscles flexed, an overwhelming power, countless times stronger than before, seeped out from every part of his body like water from a saturated sponge. With his fist tightly clenched, he suddenly threw a punch. Boom! The air before his punch rapidly condensed, forming an invisible projectile that shot out, crashing into the crimson barrier and causing ripples to spread across its surface. If an ordinary Nirvana cultivator were hit by this punch, it would likely result in serious injury. After unleashing the punch, Lin Dong's mind stirred. A vast amount of spiritual energy swiftly gathered around him, lifting his body into the air. With his hands slightly extended, he could sense the continuous flow of Nirvana chi surging from outside the crimson barrier. He could even extend his perception beyond the barrier, encompassing the entire Pill River area within his mind. At the same time, he naturally noticed Wang Lai and his group watching him with ill intent from outside the platform. A cold smile gradually spread across his lips. Did he succeed? Little Mink and Little Yin glanced at Lin Dong with eyes filled with cautious optimism. Though they already suspected the outcome, they couldn't help but ask. Yes, Lin Dong replied with a smile. He could feel his current strength was incomparable to what it had been before. The once dreaded First Nirvana Stage experts were now no longer a threat to him. This breakthrough had far exceeded Lin Dong's expectations in terms of effectiveness. Now, he felt confident enough to stand against the true powerhouses of the ancient battleground. Even against the mysterious yet formidable Yin Sun, whom he had encountered before, Lin Dong wasn't certain of victory, but he was sure it wouldn't be easy for Yin Sun to deal with him either. This was the confidence that came with strength. Let's go. Our training here is done, and it's time to settle some scores. Lin Dong descended, giving a cold smile to Little Mink and Little Yin. During his previous spiritual energy expansion, he had already sensed what Wang Lai and his companions were plotting. Lin Dong had always been one to live by the principle of if others don't provoke me, I won't provoke them. But now that they were targeting him, he certainly wouldn't let it slide. Upon hearing Lin Dong's words, Little Mink and Little Yin glanced at the area beyond the crimson barrier and seemed to understand. They both nodded slowly, prepared for what was to come. At the edge of the Pill River, Wang Lai and a large group of cultivators hovered in midair, their eyes fixed intently on the cultivation platform, which was faintly visible through the dense Nirvana chi. Impatience and a fierce glint flickered in their gazes. Is that Lin Dong really planning to cultivate in there until the space closes? Chen Ku, whose face was thin and gaunt, stared at the platform with a shadow of annoyance clouding his expression. His voice carried a hint of frustration. They had been waiting here for nearly 2 days. Under normal circumstances, they might not have cared, but this was the ancient treasure trove. Everyone here was risking their lives, scouring every corner for treasures, while they were wasting time in this grueling wait. Anyone would find it rather vexing. The others around him nodded in agreement, sharing his sentiment. The past 2 days of waiting had all but exhausted their limited patience. Brother Chinku, don't be in such a hurry. As far as I know, the protective formation of this cultivation platform is not permanent. At most, it will dissipate on its own in 5 days. That kid can't hide for long, Wang Lai quickly said upon noticing their impatience. Moreover, once we capture that kid, we'll get our hands on his spirit puppet. For such a treasure, sacrificing a bit of time is hardly a waste. Exactly. And once we deal with that kid, this cultivation platform will be ours as well. We can make up for any lost time by cultivating here, added Zheng Heizhu with a seemingly honest smile. Yet, deep in his eyes, a cunning and sinister light kept flickering. Then we'll wait a bit longer. That kid sure knows how to endure, hiding like a tortoise. When we finally catch him, he'll taste my methods thoroughly, Chen Ku said, his expression softening slightly upon hearing their words. Brother Chen Ku is right. Once we capture that kid, you'll have the final say on how we deal with him. Wang Lai grinned, a fierce look flashing in his eyes. Chen Ku nodded and was just about to close his eyes and wait when his expression suddenly changed. His gaze snapped toward the crimson barrier, and he sneered. Finally coming out, are we? Oh! Wang Lai and Zheng Heizhu's spirits lifted at these words, and they quickly focused their eyes on the barrier. Sure enough, they saw the barrier around the cultivation platform gradually becoming more translucent at a speed visible to the naked eye. The kid finally can't take it anymore. Seeing this, Wang Lai couldn't help but laugh heartily. The powerful cultivators from the Sky Eagle dynasty behind him also showed excited expressions. They had been waiting here a long time just to deal with Lin Dong. Around the Pill River, many others were also lingering nearby. On this river, every cultivation platform was under the watchful eyes of many people, and this one was no exception. However, this particular spot had caught the interest of 3 advanced dynasties, including the Sky Eagle dynasty. While others coveted the platform, they knew their chances were slim and stayed mainly to watch the spectacle, hoping for an opportunity to fish in troubled waters. Over the past 2 days, everyone knew that Wang Lai and his group were waiting for Lin Dong to emerge. They had heard of Lin Dong's reputation and knew that he was a troublemaker. Just recently, he had offended the demonic rock dynasty, and now, soon after entering the ancient treasure trove, he had already provoked the Sky Eagle dynasty, whose strength was on par with the demonic rock dynasty. Now, the Sky Eagle dynasty had called in reinforcements, bringing in several renowned powerhouses. Clearly, they had no intention of giving Lin Dong a chance to escape. So everyone understood that when Lin Dong stepped out from that platform, it might very well be the moment he met his end in this Pill River. Because of this, when they saw the crimson barrier gradually fading, a hint of sympathy appeared in their eyes. What's got everyone so excited? Care to share the joy with me? The crimson barrier grew fainter and fainter, and moments later, it finally dissipated entirely. Then, 2 figures appeared under the gazes of the crowd, and simultaneously, a light chuckle echoed from the platform. Soon enough, you'll know whether you should be laughing or crying, Lin Dong. Today, this Pill River will be your grave. Wang Lai's eyes shone with malice as he stared intently at the figure emerging from the crimson barrier. For a brief moment, he seemed to sense something different about that figure compared to 2 days ago, but the fleeting feeling didn't warrant much thought. Regardless, the forces of the 3 advanced dynasties were all here, along with 3 bona fide First Nirvana Stage experts. With such a lineup, even if Lin Dong had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would be hard-pressed to escape death today. Brother Chinku, Brother Heizhu, make your move. Wang Lai shouted, seemingly worried that Lin Dong might turn and flee. He didn't give Lin Dong a moment to respond. His body flickered, darting out at high speed. Hey kid, we've been waiting a long time for you. Now, hand over that spirit puppet obediently. Chun Ku's eyes gleamed with greed as he fixed his gaze on Lin Dong. Having grown impatient long ago, he darted forward almost the instant Wang Lai's voice fell, his powerful spiritual energy swirling around him in a fierce gust. The last to move was Zheng Heizhu, who, despite his seemingly simple demeanor, was naturally cautious and suspicious. Even in this situation, he didn't rush to the front. His years of experience vaguely hinted to him that something about today's events felt slightly off. However, just like Wang Lai, Zheng Heizhu didn't delve too deeply into this uneasy feeling. For one, there wasn't enough time, and secondly, their lineup here was indeed formidable. While it wasn't foolproof, they had a 90% chance of taking Lin Dong down. So, Zheng Heizhu shook his head, dismissing his slight unease, and let out a cold chuckle. Under the sympathetic gazes directed at Lin Dong from the surrounding crowd, he also shot forward. 3 First Nirvana Stage experts attacking at once. Everyone understood what this signified. Perhaps after today, Lin Dong, who had already gained some fame in the northwestern region, would disappear into obscurity in this ancient battleground, and no one would remember the brief brilliance he once displayed. After all, this world is a stage for the strong. The defeated are only destined to fade away into oblivion with the passage of time. The 3 figures moved as swiftly as phantoms through the air, waves of immense energy surging from their bodies. Under this powerful surge, even the dense Nirvana chi around the cultivation platform was forced to retreat somewhat. The combined attack of the 3 First Nirvana Stage experts was formidable. Clearly, Wang Lai and his companions had some apprehensions about Lin Dong and his group. Wang Lai himself had personally experienced the power of Lin Dong's devouring realm. If they were trapped within it, their combat effectiveness would certainly be greatly diminished. Therefore, the 3 of them launched their attack with all their might, pushing their internal Yuan power to its peak, clearly intending to eliminate Lin Dong in a single swift strike. Clang! Standing behind Lin Dong, little Yin watched the 3 men charging aggressively, his eyes flashing with a fierce light. He heavily stomped the ground with his black iron staff, the scales on its shaft flicking open and glinting with a chilling, cold light. No need to act. Just as little Yin was about to make a move, Lin Dong, standing in front of him, smiled and waved his hand. Under the watchful eyes of many, he stepped forward slowly. Is he really planning to take on 3 First Nirvana Stage experts with his strength alone? What a bold move! Back in the ancient hall, even at full strength, he was only on par with Shi Kun. Now, each of these 3, Wang Lai included, is stronger than Shi Kun. Who knows? Ever since we heard of this kid, his actions have always defied logic. Who's to say he doesn't have some other trick up his sleeve this time? Lin Dong's seemingly overconfident move instantly sparked a wave of murmuring around the Pill River. Many here had heard of Lin Dong's prowess, which was why they were initially surprised that he could hold his own against the demonic rock dynasty. But now, it wasn't just one opponent. It was 3 genuine First Nirvana Stage experts. Wang Lai, too, was momentarily stunned by Lin Dong's bold action, but then a look of wild joy spread across his face. If Lin Dong had called for little Yin to act, he might have felt some concern. But now, seeing Lin Dong stepping forward himself, it was clear he intended to face them alone. Kill him! Chun Ku growled in a low voice, a sinister glint flashing across his shadowed face. A bargain delivered right to their door. How could they not seize it? However, unlike Wang Lai and Chun Ku, the ever-skeptical Zheng Heizhu's eyes flickered violently. The slight unease he had felt earlier seemed to grow stronger. He stared intently at Lin Dong, who was walking toward them. There wasn't a hint of panic on Lin Dong's face despite their sudden attack. Instead, there was a look of eager anticipation. Sky Eagle Mountain Shattering Claw, Corpse Shadow Demon Howl. While Zheng Heizhu was still mulling over his thoughts, Wang Lai and Chen Ku had already launched their attacks, faces filled with murderous intent. And their first strikes were powerful martial arts killing techniques. In an instant, violent Yuan power swept up from above the Pill River. He's just a brat from a lower-ranked dynasty. What's there to fear? At this moment, there was no turning back. Zheng Heizhu's eyes suddenly turned cold and sinister. He gritted his teeth fiercely, and the Yuan power within him erupted violently. Bear Lord of the Eight Desolations. Zheng Heizhu showed no mercy with his strike, immediately unleashing the most powerful martial art he had cultivated. With a fierce punch, his immense Yuan power condensed into an ancient giant bear that roared towards the sky. It charged at Lin Dong with an unstoppable, ferocious intent. Boom! Boom! The three First Nirvana Stage experts attacked with full force, and in the blink of an eye, they reached Lin Dong. With the surrounding Yuan power sealing off all escape routes, it was nearly impossible for Lin Dong to retreat or dodge. Lin Dong looked up at the overwhelming force bearing down on him, and instead of showing fear, he smiled. With a thought, the surging Yuan power that had been suppressed within his body erupted fully. Boom! A powerful Yuan power whirled around Lin Dong, and its intensity was on par with any of Wang Lai's group. First Nirvana Stage? The sudden outburst of power immediately elicited a chorus of shocked gasps from around the Pill River. Even Wang Lai and his two companions had their eyes widen in disbelief. They were well aware that just 2 days ago, Lin Dong's Yuan power was only at the half-step Nirvana stage. In their eyes, Lin Dong's only significant asset was likely his spiritual energy as a heavenly talisman master. But now, what they saw was vastly different from their intelligence reports. Don't panic. Even if this kid has truly reached the First Nirvana Stage, he can't withstand the three of us. Wang Lai quickly scanned Chen Ku and Zheng Heizhu. He noticed a hint of unease and fear on their faces and immediately shouted to bolster their morale. An enemy like this, if not eliminated quickly, would surely haunt them. You are overestimating the three of you. In response to Wang Lai's shout, Lin Dong merely chuckled softly. Even when he was at the half-step Nirvana stage, he could defeat a genuine Nirvana stage expert. Now that his strength had significantly surged, the fact that there were three opponents made little difference to him. Between Lin Dong's hands, a series of complex and dazzling hand seals appeared. In the next moment, his eyes suddenly sharpened, and a torrent of Yuan power roared out from within him, transforming into 5 massive beams of light that shot toward the sky. The beams of light coalesced almost instantly, forming into 5 ancient giant fingers. Waves of palpable, heart-stopping energy emanated from the fingers. Great Wilderness Celestial Prison Finger. When the 5 fingers emerge, heaven and earth imprison. With his enhanced strength, Lin Dong could now effortlessly summon all the fingers of the Great Wilderness Celestial Prison Finger simultaneously. Boom! Boom! The 5 giant fingers descended with a deafening roar. The air exploded beneath them, and even the Pill River below was churned into massive whirlpools. Under the intense, stunned gazes of the onlookers, the enormous ancient fingers roared downward, colliding head-on with the combined attacks of Wang Lai and the other two. Break! At the moment of impact, Lin Dong's eyes turned as cold as ice. His voice, equally frigid, echoed softly from his mouth. Violent ripples of energy swept across the sky, and soon, the fierce expressions on Wang Lai and his companions' faces were replaced by looks of shock and disbelief. They saw that under the onslaught of the ancient 5-fingered strike, their most prized martial arts techniques were showing signs of utter collapse. In just a few short breaths, the attacks of the three were completely shattered in the sky. The 5 ancient giant fingers tore through their offensive with an unstoppable momentum, demolishing their attacks and simultaneously shattering the last remnants of their confidence. At that moment, cold sweat broke out on their backs as they realized that the Lin Dong before them had undergone a monumental transformation compared to 2 days prior. Bang! As their eyes filled with horror, the ancient giant fingers, like meteors descending from the heavens, crashed heavily onto their bodies. Splat! 3 figures were sent flying back like kites with broken strings amidst startled cries. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and landed in a sorry state at the edge of the Pill River. Defeated in a single strike, there was no build-up or warning. Both sides unleashed powerful killing moves from the outset, but the outcome was beyond anyone's expectations. Near the Pill River, an eerie silence fell over the crowd. Everyone was stunned by what they had just witnessed. Defeating 3 First Nirvana Stage experts in a single move. What kind of technique was this? It seemed that only those who had passed the second Nirvana tribulation could accomplish such a feat, and yet, just 2 days ago, Lin Dong had been merely at the half-step Nirvana stage. Xiao. Amidst the silence, Lin Dong's figure suddenly darted forward. With a grasp of his hand, the bone-white sky crocodile bone spear materialized. The spear tip flicked, unleashing several cold gleams, targeting Wang Lai and the other two's vital points without mercy. Lin Dong never showed any mercy to his enemies. If he chose to act, he would eradicate all potential threats completely. The chilling intent emanating from Lin Dong's body caused many onlookers' hearts to tighten. Wang Lai and his companions saw the murderous Lin Dong approaching, and their faces turned even paler. Wang Lai hurriedly raised his head and looked around, shouting desperately, "Brother Shi Kun, if not now when?" Boom! Just as Wang Lai's shout rang out, a ferociously powerful Yuan power, filled with killing intent, howled from the distant sky. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed sharply. He thrust the bone spear forward, and the fierce spear light tore through the violent Yuan power. He then slowly raised his head, looking towards the distant sky. Shi Kun, has he finally passed the second Nirvana tribulation? Around the Pill River, the crowd, who had just been awed by Lin Dong's sudden surge in strength, was caught off guard by this sudden development. As realization dawned, they turned their gaze to the distant sky, where the sounds of rushing wind filled the air. Faintly, a formidable Yuan power fluctuation that caused their expressions to turn solemn spread across the area. It's the demonic rock dynasty. I heard that Shi Kun has finally passed the second Nirvana tribulation. Impressive indeed. The second Nirvana stage, it's a top-tier existence in the entire northwestern region. Shi Kun truly lives up to his reputation as a genius of the demonic rock dynasty. But today we're in for quite a show. Although Shi Kun has passed the second Nirvana tribulation, Lin Dong is no pushover either. If these two clash, who knows what the outcome will be? Indeed, as the sounds of rushing wind grew louder, moments later, a large group of figures finally appeared in everyone's line of sight. Upon seeing these newcomers, a clamor immediately erupted around the Pill River. One by one, figures darted through the air like lightning, then hovered at the edge of the Pill River. Leading them was a man in black, his expression cold and sinister. None other than Shi Kun. Compared to a few days ago, Shi Kun was noticeably more powerful. Waves of potent Yuan power continuously emanated from his body, causing even the surrounding space to ripple slightly. Faint golden light glimmered on his body, a sign that his Nirvana golden body had become even stronger. It was evident that during these past few days, Shi Kun had indeed successfully passed the second Nirvana tribulation. Upon Shi Kun's arrival, his icy gaze, filled with a murderous intent, locked onto Lin Dong. His eyes briefly froze, and his pupils contracted slightly, clearly noticing the sudden surge in Lin Dong's strength. I didn't expect that in just over 2 days, you would break through to the Nirvana stage and even pass the first Nirvana tribulation. Shi Kun stared at Lin Dong with a shadowy gaze, speaking slowly. Behind Shi Kun, Shi Xian and the others were visibly shaken by his words. They stared at Lin Dong as if seeing a ghost. Shi Xian, in particular, found it hard to believe. Lin Dong, who had only been able to contend with him using some peculiar methods, had now caught up in such a short time and even seemed to be on the verge of surpassing him. You managed to pass the second Nirvana tribulation in these 2 days, which surprises me too, Lin Dong said, holding his sky crocodile bone spear pointed diagonally at the ground. The sharp spear tip glinted with a fierce light. He smiled at Shi Kun, genuinely surprised. He had thought his own speed was already remarkable, but it seemed Shi Kun wasn't any slower. This guy, as the rumor suggested, had long possessed the qualifications to pass the second Nirvana tribulation. He simply hadn't acted hastily, choosing caution instead. If I don't eliminate an opponent like you early on, I'll have trouble sleeping and eating, Shi Kun sneered, revealing his stark white teeth. His words were laced with undisguised killing intent, but also hinted at a certain wariness. Clearly, Lin Dong's rapid rise posed a threat that he felt needed to be snuffed out before it grew any further, lest their positions reverse in the future. Same here. Lin Dong smiled back, his grin equally filled with cold killing intent. Shi Kun saw him as an enemy to be eradicated, and Lin Dong felt no differently about Shi Kun. Hearing their exchange, those around them realized that neither had any intention of making peace. They were both filled with murderous intent toward each other, and it was clear that this encounter would not end peacefully today. A tense atmosphere quietly spread between the two. At this moment, Wang Lai and the others, who were still a bit battered, quickly retreated. Their eyes were fixed on Lin Dong, filled with a mix of surprise and fear. Chun Ku and Zheng Heizhu, still visibly shaken from Lin Dong's earlier display of power, knew that Lin Dong truly had the ability to finish them off. Their eyes flickered with hesitation, and a hint of retreat appeared in their expressions. At the very least, they wouldn't dare to act again until Lin Dong and Shi Kun had decided their battle. After all, they had no significant grudge against Lin Dong and had only agreed to help Wang Lai because they coveted the treasures on Lin Dong. But now, Lin Dong's displayed strength was enough to wipe out any such greed. So, when Wang Lai saw the two's flickering gazes and the resentment in their eyes as they glanced his way, his heart sank, and he cursed them inwardly as cowardly rats. Still, as he turned his gaze back to Lin Dong, who was confronting Shi Kun, he swallowed hard, no longer daring to act rashly. Though your progress surprises me greatly, today, your fate has only one possible outcome. Shi Kun's powerful Yuan power fluctuations rippled around him. He looked down at Lin Dong, his tone filled with confidence and arrogance. He knew exactly how strong he was after passing the second Nirvana tribulation. Now, he was qualified to enter the Nirvana ranking and was considered an outstanding existence in the entire ancient battleground. In his eyes, there was still a significant gap between himself and Lin Dong. In response to Shi Kun's confidence, Lin Dong merely gave a mocking smile, not bothering to waste words. He extended his hand casually and said, "Go ahead, show me what your confidence is worth. You'll regret this." Shi Kun's eyes narrowed like a venomous snake's, fixing on Lin Dong with a ruthless glare. A sinister grin spread across his face as he moved, and a blinding golden light erupted from his body. In the next instant, he was right in front of Lin Dong, moving with ghostly speed. His entire arm glowed with a golden light, as if cast from pure gold, exuding an aura of indestructibility. Boom! As he threw his punch, the air within a radius of dozens of meters seemed to compress under Shi Kun's fist. His golden yuan power surged like a violent tide, crashing toward Lin Dong. At the same moment, an equally brilliant golden light spread over Lin Dong's body. Though his physical body had only undergone a single Nirvana tribulation, thanks to his strong foundation, he was confident his physical strength wasn't far behind Shi Kun's. Without any hesitation, he clenched his fist and met Shi Kun's punch head-on with a seemingly simple, unremarkable strike. Boom! The two golden fists collided fiercely in midair. A deep, muffled sound resonated, followed by a burst of violent energy waves that swept out like a hurricane. Even the Nirvana chi around the Pill River below was forced back hundreds of meters. The two fists separated upon impact, and both fighters staggered back several steps. The air exploded audibly beneath their feet with each step they took. After a single, direct clash relying solely on physical strength, Lin Dong surprisingly didn't seem to be at much of a disadvantage, which left many onlookers astonished. Not bad, but let's see if your body can withstand my golden demon blade. Shi Kun's eyes narrowed, finally setting aside any trace of underestimation. He clenched his hand, and with a flash of golden light, a golden saber appeared. The blade shimmered with a chilling gleam, clearly a formidable earth-tier spiritual treasure. Swish! Swish! Shi Kun stepped forward, his golden saber slicing through the air, creating arcs of golden saber light. As soon as these arcs appeared, they were accompanied by a fierce gust of wind, descending upon Lin Dong in a vast and overwhelming manner. Any one of these saber lights could easily slice a Nirvana expert in half. With so many of them, even a First Nirvana Stage expert wouldn't dare to be careless. Seeing the golden saber lights enveloping him, Lin Dong's eyes narrowed slightly. He gripped his sky crocodile bone spear tightly, and his vast spiritual energy quietly spread out, capturing every trajectory of the countless saber lights in his mind. In the next moment, Lin Dong's figure suddenly moved. With a light tap of his toe in the void, he charged directly into the oncoming rain of saber lights. Whoosh! A blurred shadow flashed through countless eyes, confronting the overwhelming barrage of saber lights. That shadow was like a small boat riding the waves, seemingly swaying but never capsizing. Under Lin Dong's near-microscopic spiritual perception, every fierce saber light passed just beside his body. Meanwhile, the sky crocodile bone spear in his hand suddenly concentrated into an extremely bright point of cold light. As the cold light condensed, it felt as if all of Lin Dong's Yuan power was focused at that single point, making it incredibly sharp. Swish! Lin Dong's eyes remained calm and composed as the endless saber lights before him suddenly dissipated. His eyes flashed with a sharp brilliance, and his arm jerked. Golden light surged forth, and that exceedingly sharp point pierced through the air at an astonishing speed, mercilessly targeting the center of Shi Kun's forehead. Shi Kun's pupils contracted sharply. He hadn't expected Lin Dong to evade his attack so nimbly and appear right in front of him. Golden Body Shield. Even though the sharp point hadn't yet reached him, it had already drawn a red dot on Shi Kun's forehead. In the next instant, a tangible golden aura suddenly radiated from Shi Kun's body, forming the strongest possible protective barrier around him. Lin Dong's sky crocodile bone spear struck heavily against the golden barrier, sparking a burst of bright sparks and making a crisp sound as if it had hit solid steel. Haha, Lin Dong, once you've passed the second Nirvana tribulation, you can project the Nirvana golden body to form a protective barrier. You won't be able to break through my golden body shield. Seeing Lin Dong being firmly blocked outside the golden barrier, Shi Kun couldn't help but laugh heartily. His eyes then turned cold as ice, his voice echoing with a chilling, sinister tone as if coming from the depths of the underworld. Don't think you're the only one with advanced martial arts. Today, I'll show you the pinnacle martial arts of the demonic rock dynasty. Your arrogance should end here. Shi Kun brought his hands together in a hand seal, like a blade ready to split mountains. Golden lights surged from his hands, and the surrounding heaven and earth energy began to crazily converge towards his palms. This scene immediately caused a stir among the onlookers. Everyone knew that Shi Kun was about to unleash his true power to completely eliminate the troublesome Lin Dong. The heaven and earth energy roiled violently, almost as if it were in rebellion. Waves of incredible Yuan power surged toward Shi Kun's palms. The dazzling golden light, like a blinding sun, soared into the sky. Everyone's expressions changed at this overwhelming display of power. From the intensity of the energy, they knew this must be Shi Kun's ultimate move. Golden Demon Heavenly Force. Shi Xian and the others watched this spectacle with eyes wide in awe, their faces soon showing fervent excitement. Unlike the others, they knew exactly what martial art Shi Kun was using. This martial art was considered top tier even within the demonic rock dynasty, reaching the level of an advanced creation martial art. It was certainly no weaker than Lin Dong's Great Wilderness Celestial Prison Finger. Such a powerful martial art, combined with Shi Kun's second Nirvana Stage strength, would undoubtedly produce a fearsome effect. Clearly, Shi Kun intended to use this ultimate move to end Lin Dong's burgeoning reputation in this ancient battleground. The radiant golden light frantically condensed in Shi Kun's hands, and within it, a dark golden hue began to emerge faintly. The hue wasn't bright, but even Lin Dong could feel an intense sense of danger from it. His expression gradually turned serious. Lin Dong had never underestimated Shi Kun. Despite his own surge in strength, he didn't dare to take a second Nirvana Stage expert lightly. Even a lion uses all its strength when hunting a rabbit. And in this confrontation, it seemed that Lin Dong was more like the rabbit. Behind Lin Dong, Little Flame could also sense the power of Shi Kun's attack. His hands slowly tightened around his iron staff, and a faint black light flickered over his body, clearly indicating he was ready to act if needed. Golden Demon Heavenly Force. The golden light swelled to its peak, and golden rings of light continuously emanated from Shi Kun's body. His gaze was icy cold as he stared at Lin Dong, a cruel smile forming on his lips. His sinister shout echoed powerfully. "Lin Dong, your luck ends here." Shi Kun suddenly stepped forward. The immense golden light in his hands began to compress in a bizarre manner. In just a brief moment, the intense golden light vanished, replaced by a single dark golden beam. This beam rippled like water, but the aura it emitted was so sharp that even Lin Dong felt a chill run down his spine, as if this dark golden light could even slice through the void itself. Whoosh! Shi Kun's face twisted into a menacing grin. Clearly, he had no intention of giving Lin Dong any time to react. He swung his arm down sharply, and instantly the world dimmed. It seemed as if all light was absorbed into that single dark golden beam. The sky was torn apart, and wherever the golden light passed, even the void left a lingering golden scar. Boom! Below, the Pill River was also torn apart, a massive chasm opening in its surface. In the distance, hundreds of Pill Spirit corpses were shattered into dust under the fierce wind generated by the force. As the dark, golden beam streaked through the air, countless onlookers felt their scalps tingle with fear. Such a display of power was truly terrifying. Whoosh! Lin Dong watched as the dark golden beam rapidly enlarged in his vision. The serious expression on his face seemed to solidify. He took a deep breath, his eyes flickering with a strange light. It wasn't fear or dread. It was a burning eagerness. At this moment, Lin Dong's hands swiftly performed a series of hand seals, the starting movements of the great wilderness celestial prison finger. Shi Kun, clearly familiar with Lin Dong, immediately recognized his intention upon seeing these movements. He sneered coldly, knowing that Lin Dong also possessed an advanced creation martial art. However, given the disparity in their strength, with Shi Kun being a full level higher, he was confident that even with an advanced martial art, Lin Dong wouldn't be able to withstand his deadly attack. Courting death. Behind Shi Kun, Shi Xian, and the others also wore mocking expressions. They, too, had discerned Lin Dong's intent, but in their eyes, it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Swish! Swish! Ignoring the mocking gazes around him, Lin Dong's hands continued to move with lightning speed, forming the seals. Moments later, his eyes narrowed sharply, and 5 beams of light, containing all the Yuan power within his body, shot out from the top of his head. The beams soared into the sky, tearing through the clouds. As they did, the void around them seemed to be torn apart, faintly emitting an ancient aura from the depths of the void. 5 ancient giant fingers, condensed and refined to a degree far beyond before, once again tore through the sky and hovered above. Waves of powerful, overwhelming energy continued to radiate from them. I told you, this won't work against me. You're merely struggling before your death, Shi Kun said arrogantly as he gazed at the 5 ancient fingers. Although the energy they radiated was indeed strong, it showed no signs of surpassing his attack. Lin Dong glanced at him, a mysterious smile playing at his lips. Then, bringing his hands together, he spoke softly. Do you really think my martial art is just an advanced creation technique? The Great Wilderness Celestial Prison Finger was the most advanced martial art inscribed on the creation martial tablet. Lin Dong didn't know how powerful the ancient sect that created it was, but judging from the black-eyed elder, it must have been formidable. The Great Wilderness Celestial Prison Finger was the sect's signature martial art. The more Lin Dong understood it, the more he sensed its vast and overwhelming power. What he had demonstrated before was merely the basics of this martial art. Shi Kun's eyes narrowed at Lin Dong's words, followed by a scoff. He dismissed it as Lin Dong's attempt to bluff. Martial arts beyond Nirvana could only be found in ancient legacies. No matter how lucky Lin Dong had been, he couldn't possibly possess such a technique. Yet, despite his thoughts, an unsettling feeling crept into Shi Kun's heart. Hesitating briefly, his eyes flashed with killing intent, and the speed of the dark golden beam accelerated sharply. Lin Dong observed all these changes in Shi Kun's expression, and the enigmatic smile on his lips grew wider. Suddenly, his hand shot forward. Great Wilderness Celestial Prison Finger, unite! A deep voice emerged from Lin Dong's throat, and then everyone saw the 5 ancient fingers hovering in the sky suddenly converge. The light around them wriggled, and, faintly, an incredibly ancient palm began to form. This hand was a weathered, ancient yellow, marked with the traces of time, cracks and crevices like a farmer's hand. Despite its rough and aged appearance, it exuded a terrifying aura capable of shaking the heavens and earth. Boom! Boom! As soon as the ancient hand took shape, the surrounding space trembled violently. Then, everyone saw the void begin to collapse, and in the midst of that crumbling void, a faint, blurry figure stood with his hands behind his back. No one could see the figure's face clearly, but as it appeared, everyone sensed a profound stillness. Even the previously turbulent Pill River fell eerily silent. It was as if even heaven and earth had become humble before this figure. This is a spirit martial art? Amidst the silence, a sharp, terrified voice pierced the air, its tone distorted with shock. A martial art with a spirit was known as a spirit martial art. Such martial arts carried a trace of their creator's spirit. When executed, that spirit could be summoned, making the martial art's power truly earth-shattering. Such martial arts were said to transcend nirvana. They were spirit martial arts. Only true titans of the world, figures whom even the heavens and earth could not erase, could create such techniques. Even a mere trace of their lingering spirit was beyond the comprehension of those like Lin Dong, still struggling to climb the Nirvana stages. Shi Kun and the others were now deathly pale, their faces filled with terror as they looked at the blurry figure in the void. Their bodies trembled, and their weakened legs nearly gave out under them, compelling them to kneel. Wang Lai and his companions also stared in shock at the scene, their faces ashen. They had never imagined Lin Dong possessed such an overwhelming, awe-inspiring trump card. This is someone we cannot afford to offend. Chen Ku swallowed hard, his voice dry and shaky. Zheng Heizhu nodded. Then both men glared fiercely at Wang Lai. If not for this guy, they wouldn't have targeted Lin Dong. Fortunately, they still had a chance to retreat now. Spirit martial art? How is this possible? Not just those nearby, but even Shi Kun was stunned. His eyes fixed on the shadow in the void, his pupils shrinking to needle points. His shock had reached its peak. Boom! Under countless shocked gazes, the figure in the void, seemingly commanding heaven and earth, moved slightly. Then, everyone saw it slowly extend a vague hand, gently sweeping downward. At that moment, the world's energy collapsed. The ancient giant hand, with the movement of the shadow's hand, swept out lightly. Under countless eyes, it struck Shi Kun's dark golden beam. Crack! The collision made no sound, but in that instant, the seemingly invincible dark golden beam cracked. In Shi Kun's ashen eyes, it completely shattered. Spirit martial art, a terrifying force to be reckoned with.